Hey there everybody, this is Caitlin here and welcome back to Card Game Tuesday, the day of the week where we enjoy all things card game related. This week in particular we have a new deck profile for you all. In particular it is actually going to be a light and a wind deck in particular. Now I was thinking half and half, like I wanted to make some kind of mechanic with the Will of Hope cards because I quite like a lot of the Will of Hope cards that we got, but at the same time I was like, I don't want to use the Book of Light. Like, it was kind of that weird thing where it was like, yes, the Book of Light is ideally the best ruler or whatnot to use for if you're specifically building around Will of Hope cards, but I did have a couple of cards in here that weren't specifically designed for Will of Hope, like a couple of things to fill in the gaps and whatnot. And I was just like, you know what? See, just offensively, having a ruler that doesn't really do anything when it flips, like it doesn't have any attack or defense, isn't really that good. Obviously, the argument for that is the only one that does do better when it's flipped is Fox, because obviously it doesn't need to attack to do whatever it needs to do. So I figured for this deck, I'd make it a zero deck. It's been a little while since we've seen Our Lady Zero here in a deck profile, but I figured, you know what, she deserves a chance in the spotlight or whatever, so we're going to dedicate this deck to her. We're calling this deck the Zero, the Sixth Sage of Hope, because basically the idea of this is to make the best use out of our Will of Hope cards and whatnot. So basically, you know everything about Zero by now if you're into Force Will, but as you're kind of new, you've never seen the Lady Zero here. She is Zero, the Sixth Sage of Light. Her Judgment is 2 light and her Energize is 4 light. She's got 2 abilities here. You can pay light and target Resonator gains plus 100 until the end of turn. And obviously you can stack this as many times as you want with like as many will you've got left over. So you can do this more than once in a turn. Or you can pay a darkness and target J/Resonator loses flying, first strike, swiftness, precision, and imperishable until end of turn. And then when she flips over, that's when the OP shenanigans start. So we flip her over and she becomes the majestic Zero Master of the Magic Saber. She is a 1100 and she is absolutely epic. Still pretty bummed that we never got any actual proper full arts of the CFC rulers. Everyone was thinking that's what the secret wares were going to be in X the New World. Turned out it was the band promos or whatever. So not sure if we're ever going to get proper full arts of these rulers, but I would love to see it happen. She gets precision when she flips, and also you prevent all all damage that would be dealt to her while this card is battling. So essentially, whenever it blocks or whenever it attacks, deals no damage to it. So essentially, it's like the best chump blocker you could ever have. Also, when she flips over, J/Resonators your opponent controls lose and cannot gain flying, first strike, swiftness, precision, and imperishable. The only thing it cannot take away, I believe, because it's not listed here, is barrier. And I can't think of anything else that it doesn't take away. I think Barrier is the only one, because Will of Hope and Will of Despair, technically, like, they don't really do anything other than, like, interact with something, so it doesn't really matter for them to lose that ability or whatnot. It's not even an ability, or it's a keyword technically, but it's a keyword that doesn't actually do anything on its own. Like, it's not like it's flying or swiftness or blah blah blah. So yeah. Zero is our ruler. We will try our best to get as many stones as we can, but ideally we want to flip her as early as we can because she is like quite a formidable force once she hits the field. Your opponent is obviously, you know, they don't get swiftness and all their abilities and whatnot, plus it means that whenever they attack, the most likelihood is that Zero is going to be the one that blocks and basically kill anything that isn't strong enough to survive, duking it out with her. So starting off, we have 4 copies of Sacred Elf. Sacred Elf is really mainly here as a bit of a mana ramp, obviously for our void cost and for our green cost. The majority of this deck, I would say it leans more towards light, although there is a precedent for green in this. I know that obviously maybe some people would say, since it's a light green deck, would you not prefer to play Glorious? But obviously Glorious's theme is more to do with inheritance and whatnot, so I felt like Zero was a bit better for this build. So anyway, the Sacred Elves are here to ramp and not produce green. Next up, we have 4 copies here of Pandora, the Queen of Miracles. Who's a very nice Resonator. I quite like her. I really liked her when we were doing draft and whatnot. So what she does is that she's a 2-drop Resonator, 1 light and 1 void. She's 400, so she's still a decent blocker, kind of like her other Resonator and everything. She is Will of Hope, she's a human. Whenever a J/Resonator you control blocks, put a 100 counter on it. So basically every time you block with something, it gets bigger, which is very, very nice. You know, it's just that way where it's like, if you manage to block with stuff that is, you know, going to survive at least, you can make it bigger for the next turn. Also, you can release the seal abilities of light cards and spells you control. This only applies to, I believe, if I double check my cards here, this only applies to one other card that we're running. But it's not a major thing, but it's a nice thing because I quite like that mechanic and whatnot. To counter, or rather to go hand in hand with Pandora, we have her son, Millium, which we have two lovely full arts of, so they're super duper shiny and rainbowy, and oh my god, look at that texture. Look at that gorgeous texture, it's lovely. So this is Millium, the successor of the future. He is a 3-cost, 1 light and 2 void, 800, 800. He is a human with Will of Hope as well. He has the ability that other Resonators with Will of Hope you control gain 200, 200 and Barrier. And his seal is 5, but obviously with Pandora we can break that. And he gains Barrier himself. So essentially, with the 2 Milliums out, they both give each other 200, 200 and Barrier. But then once they are, once the seal is broken, so we get to 5 stones, or we have Pandora out, they get Barrier anyway. So it's good that they can protect each other and protect all our other Resonators with Barrier Hope. Barrier of Hope, Will of Hope. Barrier of Hope should just be like a new spell or something like that. But so essentially, the only thing that does not get protected in our deck at all is Sacred Elf and our next Resonator that I decided to splash in just for the lols, or rather just for the memes. It's Amaterasu, the Guide of Light, who's another 3-cost. She's 2 light and 1 void, 800, 800, similar to Millium, but she's a myth, obviously. Whenever this card deals damage, you gain that much life, so a little bit of life gain, except if we're going up against Tree. Also got a really snazzy full art in the back here. You can pay 2 light and rest 2 recovered Resonators that you control. You can put this card from your graveyard into your field rested. You can play this ability only if this card is in your graveyard. And she's also got Inheritance for 3, which is obviously the same as her cost, 2 light and 1 void. Target J/Resonator gains 800? Yeah, 800, 800 until end of turn. So she kind of like just splashed in here just because she's like another way to kind of get support and whatnot. So basically she can gain this life whenever she attacks, and we have the option of like just resting Resonators and paying that cost and bringing her back if we want to. So it's a way to like cycle her out of our graveyard if we need to. Plus, you know, she's decent. I wasn't really thinking, I'm not running Spinning Mist for her because basically Spinning Mist is 3-cost. She is 3-cost. We are more likely to hit light than we are to hit green, I feel. And, you know, Spinning Mist can easily be cancelled. I know this can technically be cancelled as well, but because it's obviously a Resonator, it's like, you know, we can get it back. So I feel like running Spinning Mist with this wouldn't warrant it because it's already a 3-drop. It would be better for, like, bigger myths and whatnot. Next up, we have 3 copies here of the ultimate Swordsmaster Faria. Again, one of the Will of Hope Resonators from X to the New World. She has a 4-cost, she's 1 wind, 1 light, and 2 void. She's 900, 900, and she has obviously Will of Hope. You prevent the first damage that would be dealt to this card each turn, and you prevent the first damage that would be dealt to you each turn. So I really like it for that mechanic. So essentially, whenever she blocks, she basically... It's kind of like 0 in that she doesn't take any damage, but obviously it's the first damage, so obviously you can block with her first, but then afterwards she's kind of vulnerable, so then your opponent can just barrel into it and whatnot. But obviously they're kind of wasting their Resonators if they're trying that hard to kill just Faria. And obviously she can prevent damage done to you, so basically if your opponent is going to swing with anything, and it's the first time that you're taking life, it's negated, so it doesn't really matter. Also, like, it stops things like Lightning Strike, stops things like Schrodinger's Observation if it's like the first time you're taking damage in a turn. So yeah, it's like, you know, you get to protect yourself a little bit, so that's why we're running her at 3. And then next up, it's like one of my new favourite cards from the set here. We have Pricia ready for the final battle. She is a 5-cost, of course. She is 2 wind and 3 void for 1000, 1000. I'm keeping the banned promo ones, like the banned Pricia versions of this, in my Fire Wind deck or whatever, so I thought I'll use the normal versions for this one, and that way we get to see different artwork in that. Also, this one is like super pretty as well. Just look at the rainbow. Look at the rainbow. It's so gorgeous. Now, you should know what this does by now. Oh my god, there's a texturing. When this card enters your field, or whenever it attacks, you destroy target Resonator your opponent controls with attack less than or equal to this card's attack. If you do, put 2 100, 100 counters on it, which is awesome. It works really well, obviously, with Millium, because Millium will obviously buff up Pricia, because she is Will of Hope. And then if Pricia at any point has to block or anything, we probably won't be meaning to block with Pricia. We want to try and attack with her as much as possible to get her butt beefed up and everything like that. But Pandora will be able to give her 120 counters as well if she ever blocks. So we've got ways to make her really strong so that she can basically eat up any Resonator that stands in her way. Going on to our spells now. Since we are majorly playing with Will of Hope Resonators, I thought it was like pretty much secure to play Ryula's Volition as a 3-drop. It is a 3-drop spell, which is 1 light and 2 void, and it's got quick cast, but you may pay 1 light and 1 void less to play this card if it targets a J/Resonator with Will of Hope. So if it's targeting anything with Will of Hope, it basically becomes a 1-cost spell, which is pretty insane. Its effect basically is target J/Resonator gains 800, 800 barrier and flying until end of turn. I am actually considering maybe putting in the side deck because I've not finalized my side deck yet, but I was considering maybe putting in the Dreams of Flight spell, which is the spell that I forgot about last time I was talking about the spell. The one that basically you force and you roll a dice or whatever, you gain that much whatever times by the die, and flying. I was thinking of putting that in side deck because currently there are no flyers in this deck at all. Obviously, it depending on like what you're coming up against. Like obviously, flyers can be hit and miss. They may be like really evident in your opponent's field, or they might just not be there at all. It really just depends. So this is mainly one of the reasons why I'm running this. Potentially might be running Dreams of Flight in the side deck as well, just to like counter it. Next up, we have 2 copies of the Kaguya's Moonbeam Butterfly. I nearly called it Moonlight Butterfly here. Look at this snazzy full art. It's just absolutely gorgeous. Just look at the well, not the rainbow, the moon rather. It is absolutely gorgeous. So it costs 1 light, 1 wind, and X. And I'll use this one here to read because this one's kind of hard to read against the full art. You search your deck for a Resonator or addition with total cost X plus 1 or less, and then put it into your field, then shuffle your deck. So basically, you're paying the light and the wind, and then you're technically already getting 1, so you are paying the rest for X for the rest of the cost of the card you're looking for. So say you're looking for a 3-drop, X would be 2, because you're already getting 1 from the Moonbeam Butterfly. So you would be paying 4, essentially, if you were searching out a 3-drop edition or a Resonator in particular. We're mainly going to be using this if we need to desperately search out a particular edition that we are wanting to fish out, which we'll talk about a little bit because I'm going to save the editions for the end. Because we're running 0, we obviously want to run 0's Magic Light, of course. 0's Magic Light being a 2-drop quick cast, because 0 is our ruler, it costs 1. It becomes 1 light for the payment. You remove a target attacking or blocking Resonator from the game. Super good. It is like viable to splash in other decks other than 0's deck, obviously, because it's such a good card. I say it is best played in 0, obviously, because you're getting it for 1, and 1 cost removal is really good in this game. It is insanely good. Next up, we are running a Rendezvous of Light and Wind. Now, this is quite an expensive chant. It is a quick cast, of course, but I feel like since we're getting a little bit of ramp off of Secret Elves, if we manage to keep them in the field, then we can afford to have this spell in our deck. So what it does is that we choose one. If you control a Light J/Resonator and another Wind J/Resonator, you can choose both. You may put a Light or Wind Resonator with total cost 4 or less from your hand into your field, or put 4 100/100 counters on each J/Resonator you control. This is insanely good, obviously, if we manage to get Faria or we manage to get Pricia on the field. They can get beefed up essentially, and like for Pricia attacking, that means that she can basically like swing, she can eat something with less than 1400, which, you know, depending on what's on the opponent's field, will most likely touch most of their stuff, except obviously, say, a Charlotte who's got barrier or something like that. Obviously, removing barrier or getting past barrier is quite annoying. But this way we can at least buff up our main attackers, and we can also get a Resonator in for the cost of it. So we can maybe stick in Amaterasu, we could stick in another Faria, we could stick in Millium. Like, the odds here, or rather, not the odds, the choices here are endless. Next up, we have 2 copies of Farias Summon, another quick cast spell. It is 1 light and 1 wind. We search our deck for a Resonator, reveal it, and put it into our hand, and then shuffle our deck. And if we manage to torrent it, so if this is the second spell that we've played, we recover up to 1 target magic stone. So, like, this is kind of good if you just need to search out something that you know you can get to play, like, next turn, or you know that you badly need for it to counter something your opponent has. So say, like, for example, you feel like you're going to be taking a lot of damage or something like that. You want to search out maybe your Faria so that you can, like, then be able to play it or whatnot. Just, you know, the options are there. So that's why I'm only running it at 2 of, because it's not like a desperate need. And then I am randomly also running 1 copy of the Gathering of Fairies. I'm not too sure. I mainly just like put this in here just to like fill in a little space or whatever, but the basic thing is that it's a 1-drop, it gains you 1000 life, so it's just like a silly little one-off that I thought, you know what, I'm going to stick it in the deck. And if we want, then we could, actually we can't, because Moonbeam Butterfly doesn't search out spells, it only searches out Resonators and additions, so we couldn't search it out with Moonbeam Butterfly, but it is kind of a funny little 1-drop that we can stick into the game. Next up, we are running Wind. Oops, as I knock the camera over, my apologies. We are running Wind, so obviously we are going to be sticking in Severing Winds, because it is one of the most OP spells. I love this spell in particular. I know a lot of people have an argument about whether it's too good, whether it's broken, whether it needs to be errated or something like that. I will say it right now, I am all for this card. I am totally up for this card. Force of Will, please do not touch this card. It is fine the way it is. We are losing a lot of cancel spells when Alice Cluster rotates out, and until Rhea Cluster arrives, or we find out what's going to be happening in green, we're not going to have any more cancel spells than the ones in Lapis Cluster. So we badly need to keep this the way it is. Obviously, it's a 4-cost quick cast. If your opponent played 2 or more cards this turn, you may pay basically nothing for this card to cancel target spell. Running it at 3 of, because I only own 3 copies of it, sadly. Next up, we have 3 copies of the Confront the Unknown, which is a 2-drop, 1 green, 1 void. 1 wind or 1 void, rather. Quick cast. Target 2 target Resonators cannot attack this turn. Draw a card. So a bit of draw mechanic and a bit of basically stalling your opponent a little bit, saying, hey, those 2 things cannot attack. Obviously, it's just Resonators, so it doesn't count for J-Rulers and whatnot. But you know what? Half the time I feel like this would be better for just Resonators anyway. And then going into our 2 additions that we are running, obviously, because I'm running Wind, it's pretty obvious I'm going to be running Windscled Refuge. My apologies there, I had something stuck in my throat. I thought I was going to cough and die. Windscled Refuge, obviously, draws your card when it enters. It's a 2-drop, 1 wind and 1 void. And you can banish it, and you know what this does, because I talked about this card so many times. If you don't know what this does by now, like, are you even playing Force of Will? I probably don't need to explain this. I should just, like, flash it on the screen and be like, hey, this is in the deck. I shouldn't have to explain it anymore. And then we are also running 2 copies of the Zero Circle of Protection, which is a 3-drop. It is 1 light and 1 2 void. This is something that we can search out with Moonbeam Butterfly if we really need to. Is it Moonbeam Butterfly? Moonlight Butterfly? I don't know. I just call it Moonbeam Butterfly. When this card enters your field, choose an attribute. Jesus unit you control gain a barrier of the chosen attribute. I believe they errated this to change the wording of the enter ability or something like that. But I don't think it really makes a difference too much, but basically, you pick an attribute, your opponent cannot target J/as you control with spells of that chosen attribute. So, it's pretty much good. It's, you know, your opponent is playing black spells, block the black spells. They're playing fire spells, and get rid of the fire spells. It's pretty decent. Only running 2 of it because you don't really get too much benefit from running more copies of it. And going into our stones... Our stones are like a little bit of a mishmash here, so I'll try and explain my reasonings for them. So, I decided not to run the Pricia stones, because 1, I don't have any Pricia stones, sadly, and I don't like the idea of losing life. So, to counter this, we are kind of running a mishmash of spells, not spells, magic stones. So, we have 2 copies of Magic Stone of Black Silence, and 2 copies of Magic Stone of Heaven's Drift. These are the only accesses of black that we're getting, and this is mainly so that if we need to, on Zero's ruler side, we can access the black ability to remove keywords or whatever. So, like, this doesn't really matter too much. I mainly did this so that we could still get black, but still access the light and the wind that we need for the majority of our deck. We have 4 copies here of the Magic Stone of Gusting Skies, which is the main stone that we're looking for, which produces light and wind. And then we have 2 copies here of the Vingolf 3 stone, the Magic Stone of Nature's Beauty, which is the one that produces wind normally, and then we can remove a counter and produce light. Sacred Elf will be doing most of our wind, most of our wind mana producing, but that's why I'm running those ones, just because we need our access to a little bit of black. We mainly need access to light, but, you know, we need the wind support as well, so that's why we're doing that. And also, as a side note, I do actually have 3 copies of Christie, the Gale Force Pursuer, in the side deck, because obviously it is another, if I can focus on the card, it's another Will of Hope card. It is a 2-cost, 500, 600. When it enters your field, you remove a target Darkness Resonator from the game. This is mainly like in the side deck, because if our opponent is playing Darkness, if they're not playing Darkness, then we really don't need this. It's in the side. I also have the Resonator Zero from Exoner World on the side. It's just currently slaved in another deck, but I would stick it in the sideboard of this as well, because it's an insanely good card. But yeah, guys, this has been my deck profile for Zero, the Sixth Sage of Hope. I hope you've enjoyed the deck profile, guys. Let me know down below if you would make any changes. What kind of things are you looking forward to for Rhea Cluster? Do you think that we can keep up with the tradition of having different coloured decks and whatnot? Do you think we need to, like, maybe stick to mono builds or whatever? Do you think Zero will be a returning character at some point? Obviously, people are saying Rhea is obviously the returning character for Rhea Cluster, but, you know, there could be a character making a return someday. You never know. Zero could become a wanderer. Who knows? Like, we never know. So until next time, guys, I will see you all later.